All right, Regina, thank you so much for joining us in our community here. I'm so excited to talk to you about this subject of being an entrepreneur, despite the fact having a kid late in life. And we all know that being an entrepreneur comes with its benefits and its challenges. And again, when you add the little ones into the picture, it's a totally different situation. And you've had a lot of experience with that, and you have a very unique community that you are growing yourself. And I'd like for you to share that with our moms here at the Mompreneur Source.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Glo, for having me on today. Looking forward to sharing with the community about Alamonia Life. It's a divorce blog and private community that I started 4 years ago out of my own need as I was contemplating and eventually going through divorce. I began to journal about the things that I was going through and experiencing, and I started like letting people read what I was writing. And one of my friends said to me, she said, you need to write a book. Well, at that time, I wasn't feeling like it was time for a book, but I ended up starting the blog community, which I named Alamonia Life, which is a play on alimony.
Mhm.
And I support people who are contemplating going through and struggling on the other side of divorce. Eventually, I added three other writers, and we all write on various topics of divorce, just supporting people through the challenges that they're facing. And one of my main goals is to change the narrative around divorce.
Well, when you say change the narrative, like go into that a little bit for me.
Okay, so anytime you say the D word,
Hmm.
divorce, there's this dark kind of cloud connotation to it. And it's usually linked to shame and failure. And I don't want to label myself with shame. And I certainly don't want to be strapped with failure
Hmm.
because I feel it's just the opposite. I think when you are struggling through a marriage that is failing, that's where the shame and the failure is kind of linked in that at once you make a decision to move forward in your life, once you decide to choose yourself, you're actually growing and giving yourself the opportunity to reroute your path. And that is a very challenging place to be, but it's a hopeful place to be because you're setting off to reshape the rest of your life in a positive way if you look at it that way.
Well, I come to the conclusion that there is a difference between happiness and joy. And for me, I redefine that as happiness is something I temporarily experience. It can be here today and gone tomorrow. And joy for when I'm able to be content in any situation at any time. And I'm able to quickly refocus and rebalance and have hope for the future. And that's what's got me through, uh, I guess, all the way up to this point in my life because I am divorced. I got divorced when I was in my early 20s, I think 21. And it was oddly enough because I couldn't have kids and it caused a lot of problems for us. And he really wanted kids. And here I am today at 42, two kids, right? Over 40. So
It's
it's
awesome.
amazing when we allow nature to take its course and not add these added stresses and let society dictate who we should and shouldn't be because the enemy that I've encountered, and I'm sure maybe it may resonate with some of you, is the comparison trap. And like you said, when people think of divorce, it's like, oh my gosh, she's divorced. And then the family too. Funny enough, it's like the family you got married, or even your family sometimes like, what? You're gonna divorce him? I had one family member say to me, you know how hard it is to find another man, especially one that will pay your bills? And I'm thinking to myself, why should I be looking to someone as a means to an end? Again, happiness versus joy. Like, what am I doing with my life if demonstrating to my kids or even to myself? It's like I'm ultimately betraying the most important person in this equation, me, right?
Exactly.
And I see an epidemic. Some of my own personal family members, they are literally going in relationships. And it's not just a guy thing or a girl thing. It's just being around unhealthy humans. When we become adults, I feel, right, as adults, we get to decide what we want to do. And
Right.
we also get the consequences of what we do. So if we decide to stay in an unhealthy situation, we are demonstrating for everyone around us that this is a choice we are choosing to do. No one has a gun to your head. And most, unfortunately, in some people case, they do have that, but that's when you better get yourself into some domestic violence support. And even on that subject, since I touched on it, domestic violence support, we always think of domestic abuse as the physical side. But for me and a lot of women that I've encountered, it was that silent, that type of abuse that,
Emotional,
right,
financial.
unspoken, give me your documents, or give me the card, or cut you out of accounts. And I'm sure you can speak to that because that was a one thing and just in our conversation where we connected is that side of abuse that takes place, especially when you are in the most vulnerable time after you've had a baby and you're trying to recover your body, you're trying to feed the baby and keep it alive, right? You're trying to figure out what to do because they don't come with manuals, right? Trying to figure out all these things. And what I found is nobody was really thinking about me. Everybody was coming to me, trying to impose on me what they think I should be doing for my better health. And this ranged from the medical professionals to family members. No one just said to me, Glow, how are you? What do you need
How can I
in this
support you?
moment that makes you feel good? And you know what? I remember days, it could have been, can I just go in the shower for like, and just stay in there until I feel like coming out? Still, it's the little things, right? So and like I said, that's what really connected me with you when we were speaking. And if you could just speak a little bit more on some of the ways that you found helped in overcoming and getting to a place where you are right now, because I know someone out there is really gonna find it helpful and also direct them to your community so they can get the support.
Right. So I was married for 23 years. I suffered narcissistic abuse. During the marriage, I had 3 children. I always, had businesses, helped him run businesses, and we had it all. We had it
Mhm,
all. We ascended to some great heights and did some amazing things. But as the years went on, I suffered terribly. A lot of it was things from my past
mhm,
that I had not acknowledged and dealt with.
mhm,
And that laid the trap for me to fall into this situation within my marriage, the emotional abuse, the financial abuse, the struggles that I had, the blame that I placed upon myself. And I got to a place where I lost my love for life.
mm,
And that was a very, very rough moment. And I'm thankful that a friend of mine encouraged me to seek help because it was at that moment that I started to put the pieces of my life back together again and try to figure out the best path moving forward. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because I had the fairy tale.
mm,
I was the princess in the castle,
mm,
and no one knew the pain and the struggles that I was going through. And it took me being honest with myself about the past, the present, and looking forward to the future with a positive mindset. I too had struggles with family and friends, because they saw from the outside. And here I was on the inside, knowing that what was presented was vastly different from what I was experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it really, really hard for a person to step away from, because when your spouse is loved and celebrated and honored, and you know them to be different, it's like living in two vastly different worlds, and you struggle daily with that, because when you do start to try to open up to someone, they don't believe you because they see this wonderful person that you're married to, and they envy you. And so it was through therapy for years that I was able to put everything in perspective and start to make some decisions about my life and how I wanted to move forward. I'm grateful that I put a plan together.
Mm.
That was one of the most important parts for me. I started to uh, create a roadmap, put a plan together, because you can't just get up and walk away when financially, emotionally, physically you are beat down. You can't just walk away.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of us, we don't have a safe haven to run to. So you have to create the plan that supports all of the things that you're going to need as you begin to move forward. Scary, scary, this life, and not having taken care of myself, responsibilities on that magnitude for a very long time. But I did it. I did it.
You know,
I
I
did it.
read
Want to
somewhere,
support other people, you know, through that decision.
I was just gonna say, I read somewhere recently, it said you can have rejection or you can have regret. It's better. I at least, and I just wrote and to myself a note. I said, I choose rejection now versus a lifetime of regret because we're not getting a rerun. And I started telling people, you're not, I'm not entitled to allow you to waste my time. I can't get my time back. And a common theme with close family members of mine too is, again, they're not thinking about my obstacles, the two young kids. I don't know, but you could verify for me because my kids are not, they're all under the age of 5. But is it the hardest time you will ever have with your kids, would you say?
It's one of the hardest times that you have with your kids from a physical
Expenditure.
perspective, because
Okay.
as they get older, they start to do more for themselves, and
Oh,
they need physically, less.
mm.
But then the challenges shift.
Too emotional.
Who's in college who knows it all?
Right. Hey, I was one of those know-it-all type teenagers. My mom's like, "Oh my gosh, you're driving." Maybe I shouldn't say this on camera, but I was like, "Don't worry, I'll be all right." But you don't have a license. Don't worry, I'll be back. I know what I'm doing. I
They
mean,
know it
like I
all.
said, I'm over 40 now, then you can be held against me. But it's like you say, we did know it all,
This
and
stage, I
yeah,
shift into advisor.
right, right.
So with all my kids, because they're 11, 14, and 20, my role is different for each
Hmm.
one of them, nonetheless challenging.
Well, I just think like it's for people who don't have kids who are that age, especially if special needs come into play, it absorbs like every ounce of energy out of you that
Hmm.
you have to, like, I think it's for me, I guess, it's trying to understand what they want, right? It's like this
Hmm.
thing is just free. I shouldn't call it thing, but it's the child is freaking out because there's a need that needs to be met,
Hmm.
but you can't understand them. I think that's like the most frustrating aspect of parenting right now is like, okay, what do you want? Just tell me, what do you want? And then you just start pulling out all your tricks and nothing's working. You change the diaper, you did the meal, you did everything, and God help you if they get sick,
And
right?
sometimes the answer is nothing.
They just want you.
And sometimes the answer is nothing, a hug. or just to
Yes.
leave them in a moment
Yes.
of meltdown, because we all have that. There are moments when I'm in my room and I'm like just, you know, wanting to have a meltdown, needing to express that frustration. And one of the most important things you can do is understand that you can't be everything to everyone at every moment.
And that's why I said,
Releasing
it's
yourself and saying, okay, we're having a moment.
mhm.
Okay. And what do? You step back and you go,
Well, I taught my son to take some deep breaths.
inhale, exhale.
And then he says, "Okay, I feel better now." And I'm like, "Great, me too."
Yes. Yes, yes. Giving ourselves grace for
Mhm.
the moments when we don't have an answer, the moments we can't solve it, for the moments that we fall apart, part of life.
For me, I I had to, well, I was questioning, should I go back to work or should I stay at home full time? And for me, I feel like I have to work. Like I feel like it's so much a part of my DNA. And I don't know, that just comes along with being a parent late in life. And maybe the added pressures of the cost of living right now. It's just like you say, the fantasy of, oh, I'll just stay home and clean the house and take care of the kids and all of this stuff. And then you have these like ungrateful little people that just don't really care. Like they could make it look like a tornado hit in like 5 minutes, but I love them. And that's the
Yes.
thing is like you love these kids, and I don't really know a whole lot of people that don't love their spouse initially, at least when the relationships start, but being in close proximity when there's a disconnect in communication, and then the evolution of the partner you thought you had, I'm even finding that, or I just feel that even the spouse you think, or the person you think you're with, doesn't really get revealed until a lot of pressure enters into the relationship.
Mm.
And that's when you really start to see the true side of who you are really with. I mean, even for yourself too, right? Like,
When life presses us, that's
yeah.
when the essence of the person comes out.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it can be really interesting. I had an experience with that. 2020,
Mm.
January, I filed for divorce.
Mm.
March,
Mhm.
the pandemic hit.
Mm.
And then we were forced to live together till
Mm.
June.
Wow.
And I got to see and
Mm.
I also got to see every possible part of myself.
Mhm.
And I can say I'm so grateful that there was a tent in the garage that went into the backyard and that Amazon could deliver wine to my front door during the pandemic.
Hey, whatever works, because they said during the pandemic, like the cases of domestic violence spiked at one point.
Yeah,
And because even like with all abuse, levels of abuse, because kids, parents weren't accustomed to being around their kids all the time. And it's
amount of
interesting in
time.
our culture, I feel like a lot of parents kind of put the burden on the teachers to train their children. And I'm like, no, that starts from home. At least where I come from, discipline start at home. So if you think you're just gonna send them off and then they'd be good kids, well, they all got a taste of their own medicine during the pandemic too, because now you really see what your kids were doing in school and who they're talking to. So I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole for a long time, but
Very long
just
time.
to stay on the subject here, just solutions for moms who are part of our community that's wanting to get through these phases. Because when as you're going through it, you feel like you're the only person it's happening to, until you start speaking to other people. You're like, wait a minute, like you say, this guy is
There's
so
this whole
nice.
community
Yeah,
out here. We're all experiencing the
yeah.
same thing.
So it's pretty interesting that Puff Daddy just had this whole thing come out, which is huge because you look at the girl, she's beautiful, and then you say, she doesn't even need to tolerate that, right? But we all know who've been through it. We all know that it's a side of you you're crippled by the circumstances, and you don't really see a way out. And like you said, you have to come up with that plan. And that plan is not like you write it on a sheet of paper and boom, you need to work this plan sometimes for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially, if you're in a situation where you are totally dependent on the person.
Financially dependent.
Right, and but your gut feeling's just telling you like this is not right. Something about this is not right. Something about this is not teaching my kids to be resilient. Something about this is teaching my kids that it's acceptable to be a flawless, I mean, not flawless, but a person who is just choosing not to be harmonious or helpful or abusive, right? So when these things really start to get to you, like I said, we all know sometimes it could take years, and you have to plug into a community. Like our community here at Mompreneur Source is a community of moms in business supporting each other's, and then our sponsors support the fact that we are choosing entrepreneurship to not become a part of society that's depending on the government or trying to, you know, I guess that falls under depending on the government, but there's a homelessness crisis. I know moms who were couch surfing. It's, I just feel it's a different, it takes a lot of mental strength to overcome a challenge, but if the person's willing, I will take my shirt off my back to help them. I don't like the enabling type of systems where it's like, oh, poor you, here's some money or here is something, but I do understand and like I said, having gone through it myself, we all know that there's times when we need someone to hold our hand, and that's why we pay it forward with your community and my community, because someone held our hand through those times and we
Exactly.
got stronger, and then we got better and we're paying it forward. So we're grateful to have you as part of our community. And how can we get in touch with you?
Okay. I have the blog is alimony, but NIA
Hmm.
life.com. There you will find the blog posts, and there's a link to our private community that's on a secure network on Mighty. And through that private community, you get the blog posts, TED Talks, songs, informational videos, and an ability to connect with others there. I'm very proud of that.
You did a TED Talk?
I didn't know I post
Oh,
TED Talks on there.
oh,
So I liken it to a buffet. You come in and
oh,
then
okay.
you can read the blog post,
Mm-hmm.
you can watch the TED Talks. So I post TED Talks that have topics on the subjects that we deal with:
Gotcha.
emotions, trauma, picking up and, moving on in your life. There are songs. So I have category for the songs, and they're songs about, the loss of love, songs about happiness, just all the type of things that just kind of support people who are challenged with their divorces or contemplating.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it's just I'm proud of that community. It's wonderful.
That's great because some of our moms in our community are TEDx speakers, which is the stage before the big stage. It's all a part of the community. So I was wondering maybe we should get some of their talks out to you as well. So that'll be great. Well,
Definitely.
thanks for taking the time to connect with us. And we look forward to seeing you maybe in our cafe, our live Q&A on Mondays at noon, so we can chat and the ladies can ask you questions.
Absolutely.